Coach Teresa Ford here, and this is the Guiding You Home podcast. This is a thought-provoking and often humorous approach to moving you closer to the only one who can genuinely help you live a life of abundance and prosperity. Sound good? Yeah, it's you that needs to go within so you can sit in the driver's seat of your life, co-creating with God. So make room for more light and knowledge. As you continue to listen, you will discover elements of how to lead with your inner light, how to act on your specific promptings, and how to follow your spiritual intuition so you can fulfill the measure of your creation. Thanks for being here, and let's dive in. Hello. Okay, so episode 23, we are going to learn how to navigate fear. Wow, in this day and age, there's so much out there, and that's where our attention is. It's on what people are talking about. It's on what the news is saying. It's on everyone's opinion on social media, and man, there's a lot of noise, and it triggers a lot of stuff in us. And when I say trigger, sometimes we use the word trigger as if I can't help it, and that's my trauma, and you can't take it from me. But if that's the case, then we don't need to talk about this, because we're just going to walk around in fear all the time. But there's some of us that are like, you know what? It's just not satisfying to always be in fear. Am I doing the right thing? Did I make the right choice? Should I be believing this thing, or should I believe that thing? Like, what is causing the fear? Sometimes it's not as big as everything out there as much as it is as everything in here. Sometimes it's like, I need a different job. I don't want to have to trade money for time, or trade time for money every single day of the rest of my life, and that I'll never get to retire, and I can barely make my rent, or I can't seem to keep the relationship, or I can't seem to find a relationship, or it's I don't live where I want to live. I am not raising the bar for myself. I feel stuck. I can't seem to get over a really hard experience that I had. Like, sometimes that's where the noise is coming from. But no matter where the noise is coming from, the fear that is speaking and holds you back from making a decision and being decisive, because you're actually a quite decisive person. But when you think you're not decisive because there's a lot of noise in your life, then we gotta scale it back and figure out where the fear is coming from. What's causing the fear? So let's dive right in. I'm just gonna get right to the point of this. The point is that when fear is talking, it is part of your fragmented self that is underdeveloped to handle the situation at hand. Okay, let me say that in another way. When we're children, sometimes we have experiences that we perceive we are responsible for, or that we should know what's going on, or that we are having to process on the fly, and it scares us. When that happens, there is a little piece of us, a little part of our thought processes that gets trapped or stays underdeveloped because it feels helpless. It feels immobile. It feels like it doesn't have the power to shift and adapt appropriately to what's going on in the environment. So when mom and dad are having an argument, or they're having a disagreement, or they're talking about what they're going to have to do to pay rent, or that they're going to have to move to take a new job, or they're going to have like this uncertainty that they're having a discussion about or yelling about, in any case, it can be perceived as scary. And if you think it's your job to navigate that, but you're ill-equipped, you're underdeveloped, you're immature, you're a child, you don't have the life experience or the know-how to cope, the coping mechanism is to just stay afraid. Be afraid of uncertainty. Be afraid of a new change, a new place to be, or a new place to experience, navigating a divorce, navigating a new step parent, navigating new friends in a new school, navigating having to move to a lesser part of town because money was scarce, having to hear your parents say all the time that we don't have enough money for that, having to have contrast, major differences in parental views, like one brings home a Porsche and one is barely putting a sniff of tuna fish on your sandwich because there's not enough tuna fish at the store to provide for the family. When you are experiencing something that is other than light and love, other than crazy good. And when I say crazy good, it was crazy good to go from rolling over to crawling. It was crazy good to go from crawling to walking, because we're designed for more. We are designed to ask for something better. So it was no longer satisfying just to roll over. It was no longer satisfying just to crawl around on your hands and knees. It was much more satisfying and interesting and creative and driven by curiosity to stand up and balance on 2 feet. So if that was who you were then we have to separate who you actually are from the fear that is trying to give you counsel. And you can't take counsel from your fears. You just can't. But fear of the unknown is just a part of you that got stuck in the past when you were too underdeveloped, unexperienced to handle an adult situation, a mature situation. But we're raised by adults, right? So it's almost unavoidable. You can't not hear the conversation about not enough money. You can't not hear the conversation about too high of stress. You cannot hear about the need for more education or knowledge. You cannot hear about life, and the things that we're expected to navigate as adults. But when you hear it as a child, you're not an adult, but you're hearing about adult things. And so it scares you because you're not sure. I don't know. Is that going to be an issue? So in my first marriage, and then I'm going to tell a pretty vulnerable story here, but in my first marriage, my husband and I could never get on the same page energetically. And so he had an avoidant attachment style, and I had an anxious attachment style when I was with an avoidant attachment style. And he was he was avoidant when he was with an anxious attachment style. We literally couldn't bring our energies together for anything other than the good of raising the family. So we were pretty good at managing the family together, but we could not get on the same page energetically as a couple. So we were having a rather loud discussion, not yelling, but it was pretty emphatic, close to my kids' bedrooms. Big mistake, if the doors are closed, they can't hear us, right? And their doors were closed. But there I was choosing that place to remind my husband that he wasn't connecting with me. And the way I said it was, you connect with the kids more than you connect with me. You love them, but you can't seem to love me. What is the deal? And one of my very sensitive children heard that, and she took it upon herself to say to herself, it was my fault my parents are fighting, because if my dad would just love my mom and not us as much, then they would get along. There would be peace in our household. They would love each other, which is what she wanted most. She just wanted us to love each other. And we tried. We were trying, we would just let go of the problem and just manage the kids and the family and the activities and the schedule and the comings and goings of our lives. And that was fine until I wanted to have a relationship. I was like, we don't have to have a license to be friends. And my fear was talking. So you can hear, there's the trickle-down effect. My fear was talking to me that I would never find someone to love me because I hadn't actually done the work of loving myself first. So at that point in our relationship, I was just like, you just need to love me. How hard could it be? I'm fun, I'm shiny, I'm bright, I'm witty, I'm generous, I'm positive. What is the problem here? I couldn't figure it out because it wasn't actually until about a year ago that I found the words for it. I had never heard of an avoidant attachment style or an anxious attachment style. You know, when I started studying about the secure relationship, those are the words being used. I'm like, oh my gosh, there it is. Now I have at least an explanation for why it didn't work out with us. But in the middle of not knowing, my fear brain, even my subconscious fear brain, like I couldn't even put words to it back in the day, was that my mother would never love me. Like there was something about me that was unlovable, that I would never be good enough to have the kind of love I thought as a baby was possible. Like we come into this world as babies and we're like, yeah, we are going to lean heavily on our caregivers to teach us more about who we are, the love and the light, than anything else. Like that's their job, is to show us how much love and light we are, so that we can remember, because the veil is drawn, like we don't remember where we came from and all the awesomeness that we were and how enormously light and intelligent we were. And here we are trying to navigate life from a place of blindness, if you will, spiritual blindness. And we're trying to figure out how to navigate. What do we do now? How about now? Am I doing it right? Am I not doing it right? Like, where's the fear coming up? And that fear is coming from a place when you were placed in a position in your life to believe you were less than the love and light that you are. So when my parents were fighting, and they would invite us out of our beds at midnight to watch them fight and to judge who was right and wrong. That was awesome. But there I was, like, oh, there's no love in our family. Our parents don't love each other, like, and they don't love us. So there is no love. There's no love in the world. Like, I'm going to have to look for love in all the wrong places in order to find it. And oh, I did. And I tried hard. And I really did put a good effort in to try and find love, even if it was in all the wrong places. So my fear as a child was that I entered a relationship that was not right for me. It was wrong for me because I was absolutely determined to do it better than my parents did. I was trying not to have the relationship they had, and lo and behold, I got what I wasn't looking for, what I didn't want, because I was looking at what not to do, and I got what not to do. So that's the law of attraction, right? That's the universe delivering what I was focused on, and I was focused on not doing it like them, and here I was in a relationship begging him to love me, and it wasn't being offered. Oh, yeah, that's codependency. I was asking for something that wasn't being offered, but that was my fear that was asking. Because my fear, that inner child that was afraid love was not available to me, was not accessible to me, was what was governing the conversations in my head about, he's just like your mom. He's never going to love you. You're never going to be enough. You can't try hard enough. You can't be smiley enough. You can't be productive enough. You can't be successful enough to get the love you need. Because my false belief was that I had to earn it. The truth is, I was loved all along. I was born love. I was love. I embodied love. Love was in me. You can't undo it. You can't take it away. My fear, though, from my trained brain, my conditioned brain from childhood, was that I wasn't loved. And I would have to try really hard, in fact, inhumanly so, to get the love that I deserved, that I wanted, that I craved. So, fear, in that case, was driving a conversation based on an immature, undeveloped child that was still stuck in the past, afraid that love was not available. Can you hear how fear, taking counsel from our fears, is really a bad idea? Because it's from an underdeveloped place in our minds, not in actuality, not in reality, just in our minds, from the conditioning we received from the parents we were trusting would tell us the truth about the love and light that we are. So, back to my daughter, the sensitive child that perceived it was her fault. So then she grows up and she's navigating life, and her fear brain is telling her she has to earn love. Like the saga continues. Like she is just a product of my fear. And her fear is navigating the same way. But as a child, she internalized, not because we told her it was her fault, but she internalized it. I internalized it from my mom, even though she was the one having a bad life. She was the one insisting not accept love in. I internalized it as it was my fault and my responsibility to make sure she was happy. And my daughter did the same. She was determined to make me happy with her antics. And she was the funniest. She was the brightest. She was the most creative. But she was also probably, like if I were to think of all my kids, the most sensitive. And she picked up all the energy of the not lovingness that I was feeling about myself from my inner child. And then her inner child stayed a child as she grew up and tried to navigate life. So you can see in this scenario how the only time we're ever in fear is because there is a part of us, our history, somewhere in the past, somewhere usually under the age of 21, that we got stuck trying to navigate an untruth that we took on as a true belief. It was like, well, it must be true or my mother would love me. It must be true or my parents wouldn't fight. It must be true that love is lacking in life and you have to try really hard to earn it in order to have love. But then you start looking around the world going, yeah, but there are people who love each other and they don't try. So then, like, okay, so maybe I'm wrong. And then there's conflict. Well, how come them, not me? How come they had such a good life and I don't? You know, but who's talking? That's the difference. We've got to separate the voice in our head. Who is talking when we feel good and we're lined up with the life we want? Who's talking? Well, that's a mature part of us. That's a developed, nurtured part of us that does not have a trauma bond with the past. It's a mature part of us that is willing to explore how to navigate life without fear. Yeah, there's a little uncertainty to it because we can't see 3 steps in front of us other than where we are, right? And we take on life as it is, it appears to be. But if we have a developed, mature part of our brain that can say, well, this is what it is, but it's not always going to be this way because I'm born for more. I'm going to get the new job. I'm going to get more education. I'm going to find the better life routine that helps me live fired up. Like that part of our brain is not the fear. So therefore, it is the part of our brain we ought to listen to most. It's the part of our inner being and our brain that are connected. They're actually lined up with the bright, shiny, loving people that we are. Like our spirits are all the intelligence of the energy that creates worlds without number. Like it's a connection. And when you feel good, your brain's on board with the true love and light inside of you that can navigate life, even though it's not been navigated before. You've never lived tomorrow yet, or next week, or next year. Like that's all of the unknown out there. And there's a lot of facets of that in our political world, our economic world, our financial status, our relationships, our careers, our purpose, and our contributions, our charities. Like there's a lot to navigate that we haven't navigated yet. And life will always cause us to ask for more. We'll be good for a minute and then it's not enough and we want more. We buy a bike and we ride it around, we enjoy it, and then we decide we want a motorcycle. Like it's never going to stay the same if we're growing and developing. The reason we get stuck is because we're taking counsel from our fears that are stuck in the past. Maybe it was last year. Maybe you suffered a tremendous loss in your life that you just didn't see coming. A loss of a relationship, a loss of a loved one, a loss of a home, or due to natural disasters. Like if we've experienced something even in the recent past, your brain got stuck there. There's just a piece of your brain. You had a thought that is untrue that keeps you stuck. Now, I'm not saying that that's every case, that there might be a traumatic event that you are able to process, that you are able to grab hold of it with your mature and developed brain that's like, oof, that was not fun, but I'll be prepared next time. Like, I'm not gonna dwell on it. I'm gonna move forward. That's good. That's not your fear guiding you. What we're talking about here is navigating fear. When fear's talking, we've got to stop and ask, who's talking? Is that the underdeveloped, scared child? Is that the person stuck back there in the house fire that happened 2 years ago and you lost everything you owned? Is that the fear brain that experienced a loss that completely blindsided you and flattened your life? Is that the fear brain that didn't get the love and nurturing from a parent that should have been there to advocate in your behalf? Like, who is talking and how old is that person? Oftentimes, if you stop and ask yourself, when you're in the middle of fear, you're like, oof, do I navigate this medical decision or that medical decision? Like, what am I going to do? Who's talking? And as soon as you ask yourself who's talking, a memory will flash in your mind. When that memory flashes in your mind, how old were you in that memory? It's okay about the things you can't remember. It's okay if you can't go back to age 2 and catch all the details. But if you were like 8 years old and you came to school one day and learned that a classmate had died, and it was your first experience with death, and you just couldn't even process, but all you saw around you was sadness and unable to process. Like you're like, I don't even know what to do with this information. And then here you are, faced with a medical decision that you're trying to help your loved one navigate, and you're like, I don't know. That fear is coming from an experience you had prior, and that's how old you are. So that memory is helping you understand that an 8-year-old's trying to navigate something in your life that you've never had to navigate before. And if you are taking counsel from your fears and it makes you feel stuck, it makes you feel immobile, it makes you feel powerless, then you need to ask that child to step aside. Please, I'm the adult. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to ask you to go over there and take a nap, younger child, underdeveloped, unemotionally equipped to handle what's going on. And I'm going to look for answers. I'm going to talk to people that have been through this experience. Don't ever talk to somebody that hasn't done what you're trying to do. I promise it won't go well. Only talk to people that are trying to do what you are trying to do. Ask their opinion, ask for their experience story, and then just take it all into account, and then consult with your inner being. If nothing is feeling right, wait. Don't do anything yet. Wait for the answer. But as long as you're not trying to navigate from fear, which is usually a knee-jerk reaction. Somebody cuts you off on the road, you sucker. Fear, you're putting my life in jeopardy. How old were you when someone put your life in jeopardy? And how powerless you felt to change that. Don't take counsel from your fears. Your adult self will always give you space to think it through, to investigate more, to sit tight till it feels right. That's a good one. That just came out. Sit tight till it feels right. When your fear is talking, it's not really the you. It's not really the inner, intelligent, wise, decisive person that's talking. It is some part of you that's underdeveloped and got stuck in the past and is still operating from the premise of a falsehood that is believed to be true. So you got to kind of unravel what's the false belief. What is my inner child? If you want to develop the inner child so that fear doesn't keep coming up, then you've got to identify what is the false belief that child picked up in that circumstance, or that underdeveloped person that wasn't ready to navigate and went from fight or flight to freeze, and they're still frozen in that place, in that loss, that unexpected turn of events that was anything but on your radar. That's the person you've got to ask, what is the false belief that you're trying to make true in your life right now by fighting against a decision that scares you? If there's resistance, it's fear. If you're indecisive, it's fear. If you're uncertain, it may be a hint of fear, but it's also your inner guidance system telling you to wait until you know it's right. When you want to navigate this ever-changing environment and world that we live in, like, we are a global people. We have global news. We're not just living in our neighborhoods anymore or down the country block. There's so much to navigate. And then we look in the mirror and we're like, how am I going to even manage what I see? The person that is different on the outside than they feel like they should be on the inside. Navigating our health. Like, that's a discussion that has so much noise attached to it that we do nothing. Or it's like, yeah, I just need some, popcorn and a soda at the moment. Like, I don't know what else to do. That is a fear brain. That's a underdeveloped idea in your mind that is a false belief because it's making you feel bad, stuck, indecisive, etc. And we've got to identify the belief there. The belief that you can't trust yourself to take care of your body. The belief that you'll never listen because you don't know what to do because you're trying to follow what somebody else's advice is for their own body and it's not about you. Like, what is the fear? That you'll start something and never finish it? Is that true? Probably not, because when you decide to get groceries and you make a list and you go to the store and you find a parking place and you walk inside and you get all the things on your list and you put them on the cart and you check out at the end and you walk back to your car and you put the groceries in the car and you get home and you put them in the cupboard and then you cook the food and you eat it? Oh no, you started something and you finished it to the end, all the way to the end. So that can't be true. That you start something and then you don't finish it. Maybe you lose interest. That would be more true. You're trying to find more truth. And when you find more truth, you feel relief. It's a big difference. It may not have a solution to it, but at least your thoughts are more lined up in a mature and developed way that align with your true self than having fear brain tell you it's only going to get worse from here on out. When did you first hear that? When did you first think that? The memory that comes up first is always the memory that it was rooted in. Always. And you got to go back. Ask yourself how old you were. What was happening? Why did you think it was true? How is it false? And then find the truer belief. Improve the story. Find the thought that gives you a better feeling in your gut. That's how you navigate fear. So, now it's up to you. Like, it's you that does the work. It's you that can make these changes. But some self-awareness is going to go a long ways for you to realize that your fear brain that has no business trying to navigate your life. None. Navigating fear is identifying what the fearful thought is. Where is it coming from? How old are you? And put it to rest. It's like, well, that wasn't true. I'm not sure what was true, but that wasn't true. Because if it was true, it'd make me feel better. Truth makes us feel good. Lining up with the truth of you makes you feel good. When you're like, it's like Christmas morning. Lining up with Christmas morning is like, oh my goodness, I can't wait. I just bought a present. I wrapped it in the best wrapping paper, and I'm going to give it to somebody, and their delight is going to be my favorite thing. That's lining up. And so sure enough, you give the gift, they unwrap it, and they're just delighted. And it's your favorite thing. Ta-da! Like, that is how you navigate out of fear so that you can find truth. The truth that you were doing something with the intention to delight somebody, that was absolutely true. And it's true because you feel it. That's how you know it's true. Truth makes us feel good. When we read somebody and we catch hold upon a thought and we're like, yes, that feels good. That's because it's lined up with who you are. But when you speak untruths and you try and make them true, just watch yourself suffer. Just step aside and watch it go down. It's about to go down. And you feel stuck, you feel flat, you feel unmotivated, you feel discouraged, you feel jealous, you feel unworthy, you feel undeserving, you feel tired, exhausted. Like, those are the things you feel when you're working with untrue beliefs. And those untrue beliefs are coming from fear. The fear is stuck in the past. It's the underdeveloped, emotionally stuck person that had an experience that couldn't navigate. Thanks for listening. I invite you to leave your feedback and share your aha moments as you listen to this podcast. Also, you can access more information or any of the programs, courses, or worksheets that I've mentioned on these episodes on my website at teresaford.life. Or what I would really love is for you to connect with me on Instagram at teresaford.coaching and on Facebook at Coaching with Teresa Ford, so I can give you more interesting insights and further coaching to help you fulfill the measure of your creation.